Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining us again, Tuesday Tent Talk. This week we are talking all about frame tents, and I have got, if you remember, Brian has been on before. He's the owner of Rental Innovations. He was in the rental business for a long time, still is. Actually, you do relief tents still, but you're not doing like day-to-day like graduation parties and stuff.
No, I don't do that anymore. I do hurricane, disaster. We just did a bunch of work up in Oklahoma for this past ice storm, stuff like that. But yeah, that's only kind of tinting I still do. I do most of my time is spent, my day-to-day work is through Rental Innovations.
Right. And for people who don't know what Rental Innovations is, you're making bags, you're making protective equipment, you have sidewalls, you have ratchets, basically the stuff you need
for your tents,
for your tents, and to keep your stuff good.
Yep. Chair bags, all that good stuff. So,
right. But this week there's a lot of questions about frame tents. A lot of people don't understand anything about them or the differences between them. So I said I was going to get a professional to come on that knows a lot, and you said you'd be on. And
yeah, that'd be good.
You do know a lot. So let's get right into it. The most common, the one that's been around the longest, I believe, the West Coast frame tent.
Yeah. So first of all, let me kind of talk a little bit about frame tents overall and why I've done a couple video blogs myself on tents and stuff like that. So this just kind of feeds off of that. And when you're buying, I'm just going to briefly touch on pole tents. I know, Adam, that's not what we're talking about, but I just want real briefly that when you buy a pole tent, it's very important that you buy from a very reputable manufacturer, because you're tensioning down the tent, and the way it's engineered is to work on tension. And if you buy from a manufacturer that doesn't really know what he's doing, or kind of a second-class manufacturer, it just seems like that they don't last as long, and you have a lot of problems with ripping. And you have problems with just them looking nice and tight when they're up. Okay, so that's how I feel about pole tents. Frame tents, on the other hand, all you're doing is you're building a frame, and we can talk about West Coast frames. I think that's where Adam wants to start. You're taking a 2-inch pipe, and you're just basically laying vinyl on top of it, and you're getting the tension on the vinyl. You're kind of taking out the wrinkles, if you will, by buckles that fit underneath the framing that goes around the perimeter. So it's not as important to the manufacturer, I would say. You can buy from what I would call maybe a tier 2 or even a tier 3 manufacturer with frame tents, because their frame tents are not you basically, like West Coast frame tents, are not wind rated. They're not engineered. So it's just not as crucial that you buy from, say, a Eureka or Anchor or Carnegie or the other 4 or 5 that are out there. For frame tents, I would say find your best deal. Get a 15 or 16 ounce fabric that looks good, and just go with it. Get a good price on it.
So for people who don't know, this is what a West Coast frame tent looks like. Basically, it's not a great picture, but it's legs, and then all the frame pieces go up to a peak, whether it's one single peak on a 20 by 20 or it's longer, and they all go up to the top, and then the top gets kind of dragged over it, right?
Yep. And it's held down with buckles around the perimeter. So very easy to set up. Takes a little bit more, because it's a little bit heavy once you get it all on there and everything. It takes a couple guys to help to lift it up, help you with it, or you need 1 or 2 good tent jacks, and you can buy those from just about any place that sells tent renters sells them. Central Salina or Central Tent, gettent.com. A lot of those kinds of places sell the tent jacks to help you lift it up because you build it on the ground and then you lift it up and put your legs underneath it at that point. Right. So the frame tent is your most basic. Your West Coast frame tent is your most basic type of tent. Very easy to set up. One of the things that I will say is it's very important when you buy a frame tent is the aluminum. You want to buy a Schedule 40 2-inch aluminum, and you want it to be anodized aluminum. Remember that word, anodized aluminum. And what anodized aluminum is this aluminum that they put a coating on. And what that coating will do is that will stop your hands from getting black when you set it up, when you touch it. It will also stop your tent from getting black. If you buy a non-anodized aluminum, the tent will get black all underneath it where it goes up the poles. And that is darn near impossible to get out.
Right.
Anodized aluminum is not that much more expensive, and that's what you want to get.
And where the sidewalls touch the legs, especially on the corner.
Anywhere. Your hands, I mean, at the end of it, you just so you know it's anodized or not anodized. If you just right when you get your tent, or if you're going to buy a used one from someone, just take your hand and just run it like around, over the pole. Go about 3 foot over the pole. Look at your hand. If it's black, it's not anodized. If it's not black, maybe it could be dirty. But if it's not black, then it's an anodized aluminum. You always want anodized aluminum. It does nothing for the strength or the durability of the aluminum. It's the same. It just helps keep that tent a lot cleaner and helps keep it's just a much nicer. It's not that much more expensive.
Right.
We used to have our own aluminum extruded when I owned my tent company. We got to the point where we were buying, hundreds and hundreds of pieces of aluminum, and so we were bringing in our tops from overseas, and then having our aluminum extruded in Texas, and we would always. I think it cost maybe added 5% or 6% to the process, to the cost, and it maybe added a week to the actual process, because most places have to send it out to get it anodized. And it's just a dip that basically protects it, kind of a clear coat, if you will.
Right.
So then what you got is your so now on your West Coast frame tent, that vinyl 15 or 16 ounce is just sitting on top of it. It's buckled down underneath around the perimeter poles that go around the perimeter, and then you put your legs on, and then that's it.
Let's back it up a little, because some people don't understand how to actually get the top on. Like
okay.
you would build the pyramid first. Let's just say 20 by 20 or 30 by 30. You would build the pyramid, or if it was longer, the pyramid rectangle first, and then you have a tarp off to the side, where if your tent was one section, you would just unfold it and bring it up over. If it was multiple sections, you would lace it together and then drag it up over, right?
Yep, we used to lace ours on the ground, and then the guys would drag it over the top. And of course, if you do like a 40 by 60 or a 40 by 80 or a 40 by 100, it's a lot of vinyl. You're going to take more guys, but they would build it on. They would lace it up on the ground, and then basically just kind of throw it up over the top, and take for the bigger tents, it would take 3 or 4 or 5 guys to get under there and really get it up. But 20 by 20, 2 guys ought to be able to set that up, and you're setting it up. It's very light. You're just kind of easily getting it over.
Right.
Most people starting out, should start out with a 20 by 20, and maybe a 20 by 30 or 20 by 40, but I wouldn't go any bigger than that. Starting out, you do backyard stuff. Don't go with the 30 wide or 40 wide.
No.
Not very
There is a company near me. When I first began, I sub-rented a 30 by 45, and it was very interesting. They didn't put the tent together. It was a lace. They didn't lace it up on the ground next to it. What they did is they threw each section over, and then they would either stand on a ladder or water barrel and just lace it as they went down. So none of their tents ever had marks from being dragged. No ropes were ripped from getting caught on things. It was interesting. It took about the same amount of time.
It's a way to do it. It takes a lot longer. It's what you're getting. A lot of these techniques of that sort of thing. You're trading time for maybe keeping your tent looking better longer. Because when you're dragging over, especially when you get into the bigger tents, when you're dragging over a ton of vinyl over the top, a lot of times you may get caught on something, may get ripped that you're gonna have to patch. You may get some pinholes in it. So certainly always the best way is to do it, to build it or to lace it up on top of the frame. But once again, that takes a lot longer. So now what you're doing is you're trading hourly employee salaries for, a little bit extra on your, a little bit extra on your length of how long your tent's going to look good. Once again, we rotated our tents out pretty regularly. Once they started getting pinholes and stuff like that, we sent them over to what we called the hurricane pile, and we would use those for the hurricanes and stuff like that.
Right.
If you don't have a hurricane pile, then you have you should have a festival pile. You should have use those kinds of tents for your festivals. Use for maybe your these restaurant tents that are going up for these long periods of COVID tents. Right. You should never be using your A quality tents for those kinds of things. Now I know, when we're starting out, we got 4 or 5 different, that's all we got, 4 or 5 tents, and it's either take the job or not take the job. And hopefully you're making enough money off of it that you can make that now a beast quality tent when it comes down, and you made enough money where you can buy maybe 1 or 2 A quality tents, and that's how you build your business. So anyway, so certainly what Adam is describing where they did is they built it on they had laced it up on the top of the frame. That's certainly a thing. So then once we got that, then you put your legs underneath, and now you got to watch your guys, especially guys that have got experience. Guys will get lazy, and they will not put the pins. You usually either use an R pin, which is a pin that looks like an R, or you use a what they call a bail pin, which the pin goes through it and it has a little clip that goes around it, and it secures it in that way. So you use one of those 2 types of pins. Guys will get lazy, especially if they've been doing this for a while, and they'll think that they don't have to put pins in the legs. And I've seen many a tent fail by them not putting pins in the legs. Many of our tents failed. So we had to basically say that if they did that and we caught them, that they would be suspended. And that can end at that. But you always want to make sure that you're putting pins in every one of the holes throughout the tent. Don't let the guys get lazy on you.
Right. Also, it's not even just for the end product failing. If you don't put the pins in as you go and you lift one corner, usually depends on the size tent, but sometimes when you lift, another leg may actually come up and then that leg falls out, and then you got to run over and get that one back in. Don't
take shortcuts. I mean, they're meant to have. They got those little holes in there for a reason. Put a damn pin in there, and that's how it's supposed to be. And that way you're doing it right.
Right.
A frame tent can be secured with, the best way always is with stakes. If it's on concrete, you can use concrete anchors. And then if not, then the next best way would be blocks. Many of you have heard of Block and Roll. That's a commercial product that's out there. Good product. You don't have to use Block and Roll. We made our own blocks. We made a form, and we would have a guy come out and do just with the cement truck, and he poured cement in them, and we made our own blocks. We eventually went to Block and Roll just because Block and Roll is kind of the standard now throughout the industry. And you can buy the block covers I sell block covers for Block and Roll blocks. So you can buy the block covers made specifically for that size. Whereas if you're making your own form, you're going to have trouble finding a commercially manufactured block cover. You're going to have to get something custom made, and then that's going to be your savings. So I would probably say go Block and Roll. Now, a little more controversial. If you look at Facebook,
wait. Before you get onto the controversial thing, I just want to touch on the concrete blocks. So a lot of people they don't want to do them because they think, it costs a lot to make them, and it costs a lot to move them. And they're just going to think they're losing money on this tent, but you can charge for the blocks. Some companies I talk to, especially down in New York City, they say they make more money doing concrete blocks per year than they actually do during doing tents. So you can charge. If the tent has 6 legs and you charge $50 per block, you can charge for that. It doesn't have to just be part of it.
We charge $75. We charge $75 per block, And then depending on the size of the block. Now, when we started doing big structure tents, you need a lot bigger blocks. So we used, we charged, we would charge, $400 or $500 per block. So, but for just a smaller block for say a 350 or 700-pound block, we charge $75 to $100 for it. And you're using 10 blocks maybe. So, multiply that by 10. So $750 you're adding to the price of your tent. Plus if we needed to send another truck, you gotta be careful. Don't overweight your truck. You don't break down the suspension of your truck. So you may need to send another truck. You may need to make 2 trips. So you're going to charge them for that. Don't be afraid to charge for your services. I mean, this is on them. Give them that, let them know that, hey, if you let us drill into your concrete, we can't, that's going to be, if it's on concrete, if you let us drill into your concrete, that's going to be the cheapest way and also the safest way. But a lot of people don't want to do that because they don't want their concrete compromised. Even though those concrete anchors, they make a little black cap that goes on top of them that you can use them every time. Or you can fill it in. We used to fill them in with Quickcrete when we were done. A lot of people just don't want it. We charged, I think we charged $10 an acre for when we did drop-in acres, and versus the cost of a block. I just told you $75 plus more shipping. But it's on them. You don't be apologetic about it. You got to get paid for it, and you got to be safe. So you don't want to take shortcuts, because guess what? If you say, well, you know what, we can use only half of the blocks, and that way I won't have to get another truck, and it won't cost you as much. Guess what? If that tent blows away and they come out and find out that you didn't put enough weight on that tent, that customer is not going to come out and go to your defense and say, oh, well, I told them, that I agreed with them. We didn't want that many blocks. I told them they're going to go get you. They're going to say he was the expert. It's on him. So always remember.
Charge for your blocks, and also think of it as it's an item that doesn't really break, doesn't break down. You don't have to clean it. It's just going to consist. Once you make it, it's just going to make you money over and over and over again. Now, before we get onto the water rail thing, I just want to address this guy. How do you move the blocks as a small guy? Well, I've seen many small guys move the block and rolls with the block and roll cart, because they've designed it where the pivot point is pretty good, and you just stand on it and pull. It's kind of forceful. You pull back, but I've seen small guys do it, so don't really worry about that. Now,
or Adam, I mean, if you're doing a 350-pound block, your dolly should be able to pull that block around. I mean, if you're gonna make your own blocks 350 pounds, you can just pull them around with your dollies. So it's not you don't. Once again, block and rolls, it certainly is the industry standard, and it's something that you definitely want to strive for at some point, but it may not be for everyone right off. I mean, getting some blocks made from the local guy down the street may be how you start out, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Just make sure you put enough concrete. Make sure about 350 pounds each, and then move them around with your dolly. It's no problem.
Now, the more controversial part, which is a controversy, is water barrels. There's a job where I have to use water barrels. It's a 30 by 60 frame tent. It's on the 3rd floor, but it's got 2 by 2 squares on a patio that are like sitting on some stands, and then 2 feet under is like rock. It's a patio at a casino. I can't put 350-pound blocks on that. I got to use water barrels. So let's talk about water barrels.
Yep. So I use water barrels to this day. I mean, we use water barrels out on disaster sites. If we're needing if we're having a weight problem, if we're going a long way, for whatever reasons, we still use water barrels. It's not the best way. People are going to show you pictures of tents that have blown over and stuff like that because of water barrels. Generally speaking, when you have problems with water barrels, there's a couple things going on. One is the guys are only filling them up halfway. You got to fill the damn water barrel up. It's 55 gallons, put 54.5 gallons of water in them. And secondly, they're not using enough water barrels. We use a minimum of 2, depending on the size of the tent, but a minimum of 2 water barrels on each corner and 2 water barrels on each lace line. The lace line being where you lace the tent together. And then we use 1 water barrel on all the other legs, completely filled up. If you do that, you're going to be in pretty good shape, unless just a huge wind comes up. But you know what? I can show you pictures where I have had tents collapse where we used 48-inch stakes. And sometimes if you just get a huge wind and it hits it just right, you're going to have problems. Tenting is a tough business. We try to mitigate our the chances of anything happening by doing everything safe as we can. But sometimes because of the factors beyond our control, things happen. So I would say that water barrels have a place in our industry, certainly for 10 by 10 wides, 20 wides. I really see no problem with it. I wouldn't put them up for months on like a COVID site, but for a weekend or even a week where you can monitor the weather well and stuff like that. For 20 by 10, I wouldn't have a problem using water barrels. Just once again, fill them up, put 2 on every lace line, 2 on the corners, and 1 on every other leg. If you're going to go on a bigger tent, 30 wide or 40 wide, you're going to want to put more on the lace lines, probably 3, probably put 3 lace line on the corners. And then you're also going to really want to be just like a weekend type setup, maybe set up Friday, take down Sunday, and you're looking at the weather and it's clear blue and 22 and no storms or anything like that. There's going to be storms or anything forecasted like that. You want to be careful with water barrels. You probably don't want to use them, especially on a bigger tent.
What about this? I've never heard of this. Water bags, like some government tents use, closer to the ground, can't tip over, and more surface area.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking you're talking maybe like about a water bladder. I mean, I spent 22 years in the Army. We set up tents in the Army for when we were out in the field, but I don't remember ever using water bags. Once again, the key is whatever you're using for ballast, you want to make sure that it's got enough weight in it. So the ballast part needs to be that, water weighs, I think it's about 6 pounds per gallon. So you want about that 300 to 400 pound per leg of weight there on a smaller tent. And then also you don't want it, the surface area on the ground is always certainly good. So I don't know, maybe I think the water bag, if it had enough surface area on the ground and if it was good enough, I think it'd be fine for a frame tent, small frame tent.
Now, one thing about water barrels is you don't treat them like stakes where they go out 4 feet, 5 feet. Because if you think about a water barrel, when you dump it, you can literally just push it with your body weight. You want it close to the leg.
It goes right on the leg.
Yeah. You don't want it out because if the wind comes and moves the tent a little bit, it's just going to tip that water barrel way easier than you can tip it just pushing it. And you can push it over easy.
What some guys do and what we used to do is we would take the water barrel and then we would we'd put it right up next to the leg. And then we would take, if we were doing 2 water barrels, we'd put them right up next to the leg. And then we took a strap and we'd go around the leg in the water barrels and try to get as tight as we can and try to make it part of the leg, as close to the leg as we can. If you've heard of these Giffy water barrels, there's a place called Giffy they're made by American Tent, or not made by it, but American Tent bought the company that makes Giffy water barrels. The only problem with it is they're very expensive. They're like 4 for $750. And I'm not sure that I would spend that much money for a water barrel, but they're made for frame tents. They've got a little pocket in them that kind of butts up into the frame tent. So it's made for a frame tent. It's probably safer than your 55-gallon water barrel that you just buy from the guy down the street. But I don't know that they're not that much safer, not for that much more money. I mean, you should be buying these empty plastic water barrels for $10 to $15 a piece.
A lot of times you can get them for free. Basically, call your local car wash. They're getting chemicals delivered in these drums, and a lot of times they don't know what to do with the drums afterwards, and you can get them. That's how I get most of mine.
Plastic. Make sure you use plastic with the 2 holes in the top. Don't try to use steel or anything like that. Just use a plastic water barrel. Now,
the plastic ones, what you want to do is you either want to have a hanger to put through the 2 holes and then grab your ratchet and bring it through and attach the ratchet to itself, or you can actually, when it's empty, tip it down on its side so 1 hole is here and 1 hole is here. And then you just drop the ratchet down and then grab it with your finger. But if it's getting filled, then you just use the hanger.
And you're going to. Oh, by the way, let's talk about that. You're going to charge differently whether they're filled up. At least we did. We charge differently whether we filled them up on site or whether we filled them up at our warehouse. If we filled them up at our warehouse, I think we charged, I think it was $50 each.
Okay.
Filled them up at the warehouse. If we filled them up at the site, I think we charged $20 or $25.
Oh, I thought you were going to say more, because a lot of times the hose pressure is not that great. I've been at a place where it took like 4 hours to fill up, I think, 12 barrels.
Well, what we would do is we would just get the barrels out. And the first thing we did was just start. Very first thing we did was we get the barrels up, kind of put them in the general area, and just start filling them up as we were building the tent. So even if it was just a normal house pressure water, by time we were kind of wrapping everything up, we were kind of getting that last barrel pretty well worked out. You're right, it is easier, but the problem is, and you go back to, especially if you're doing a bigger tent with a lot of water barrels, you're getting back to another truck, you're getting back to. Then you're talking about a lot more weight. You're lugging around with your dollies, and so it's half dozen. But we did charge more, and we based that just on the water.
Right. My biggest nightmare with that was this past summer. The last 2 frame tents I did, 2 20x40s in a school parking lot for a flower basket giveaway, and it literally took 4 to 5 hours to fill them all because the pressure was so horrible. And I had 2 people with me. We were like an hour away from the warehouse. I just sent them home in an Uber, and no, I sent them home in the truck, and I Ubered home afterwards because it was way cheaper for me than paying them just to sit there and watch water fill up.
We had similar. And I did a hurricane last summer and in Beaumont, and we used a ton of water barrels. And I mean, it was like the water pressure is like coming out of a waterfall, water fountain you would drink out of. It was just terrible. It just took forever. But when those things happen, I try not to fret too much about it. I just, it kind of is what it is. You get them filled and you make sure you fill them up all the way, even though it's harder because you're standing there waiting on these damn things to fill up. Make sure you're not taking shortcuts. You need to fill them up all the way still. But
all right, so that's good. We've covered the West Coast, and then
that dead dog here enough, I think.
Right. Yeah, we covered West Coast, and we got the ballasting down. Let's move on to high peak, which is what I'd say is the evolution from West Coast, the second tier or whatever you want to call it.
It's also my favorite frame tent for guys.
This is my favorite too.
Whenever I see someone on the internet or on Facebook saying, "Hey, I'm just starting out. What I want to get into tents. What do I start out with?" This is it. It's a cross cable system. You got 2 cables running from each side. So the side you're looking at here, that pole right there, closest to us, there's a cable running from there to that other side, that pole on the far side, and then there's one running from left to right, those poles left to right. And then you've got a little pole that kind of goes in top there, and that's what gives it the peak.
Yeah, I call them false center pole tents because the customer doesn't know. I say it looks like it has a center pole, so it has the swoop, but there's no real center pole.
And they're light. There's if you ever go to the rental show, there's usually guys there that are selling these, and these guys, they got 2 guys there that they set this thing up and tear it down, and literally set one up in about 5 minutes and tear it down in about 3. I mean, they're extremely fast. They're very easy to set up. You can give a guy show him a YouTube video and then send him on his way, and he'll be able to get it. They're just great. And what I like about them, other than that, is they're relatively inexpensive because you don't have as much aluminum. Aluminum is really the really expensive part. And they're lighter. And what they do is they bolt together really nice. When I say bolt together, so you got a 20x20. You can butt up 2 20x20s to make a 20x40, and then they make a gutter system that goes between there, so that if it rains, rain doesn't come down between. It goes into the gutter and then out the sides.
Right.
The guy that started his business the same time as we started ours, and now he didn't grow as fast as we did. He didn't get as big as we did, but it was okay because he stayed with those high peak tents. He started out with technology, and he would build, if you go to his website, he would build 20x40s, 40x80s, 60x90s. He just bolt these 60x80s. He would just bolt these things together and make these huge tents, and they look cool. They look nice. So it's a great way to start. They're very easy enough for the husband and wife that's starting out. When I started my tent company, it was me at that time. I was 40 years old, and my 12-year-old son. And we were. They didn't have these high peaks. We were lugging up these damn frame tents, and I was about killing myself. But these high peaks, man, easy to lift. Everything about them is a way to go. You should be able to buy one for about $2,000. I've got a bunch that I've got used that I'm selling, but a lot of people have them used. If you buy them used, you should be able to get them for $750, $800, that range, for a decent one. Remember the aluminum lasts forever, so and that's the expensive part. The top is cheap. But new, couple thousand, used about $750 for 20 by 20. I would say buy a couple of them. Man, that's the way to start. 20 by 20 high peaks.
I got something to throw in about the high peak. The cost of aluminum is expensive. There are some companies who sell high peak tents where they only have 10 foot, say on a 20 by 20, they only have 10-foot poles. So they're going to have 6 legs on a 20 by 20 instead of the companies that sell the double barrel. And double barrel just means it's like two barrels kind of put together, and then it's hard to explain. I wish I had a picture, but
you kind of showed it. Let me see. Let me get over here. So it'd be like that, the aluminum. Yeah. But actually, Adam, the more reputable companies, and what I have is a 2.5 inch. So your West Coast frame is a 2-inch aluminum pipe. Technology, a lot of your more reputable companies, they use a 2.5 inch pipe, and then you just the picture you showed had one on each leg. Never buy the ones where it's got the as you said. I'm glad you brought that up. So what Adam's showing you is they used here. Looks like 2.5 inch pipe, and you just have the legs on the corner. There is, if they get cheap, you can make them with 2-inch pipe, and then you'd have a leg halfway between each one of these. You don't want that. It looks stupid, and it's just too many damn legs.
Yeah. When you have the larger pipe, whether it's double barrel or 2.5 inch, you only have on a 20 by 20, you only have 4 20-foot pieces, 4 legs, 1 center pole, and only 4 connector pieces. Now, if you buy it where it's a smaller pipe, you got 6 legs, 6 connector pieces, 8 different pipes you got to drag around. It's what should be really fast is now taking a lot longer because you got so many more connectors and so many more legs.
Yeah, you don't want it. You don't want it. It's junk. It's not good. The biggest problem that I see with you're gonna run into with high peaks is with some manufacturers is especially guys that are just starting out that I would call 3rd-tier manufacturers is on a heavy rain, water sometimes will pool into one of the corners, and when that happens, it can actually pull so much that it literally snaps the leg on that corner. We bought some from a 3rd-rate manufacturer that we thought we were getting a good deal on, and it was one of those you kind of get what you pay for. And basically, we had a bad problem with the pooling, and we were snapping legs on site, and we wound up, basically just tossing the damn tents and keeping the aluminum. But if you buy from a decent manufacturer, man, you're going to have they're great. That's how if you're starting. A lot of bounce house guys I know they're looking to get into tents. That's the way to do it. Get 1 or 2 20 by 20 high peaks. Watch a YouTube video on how to do it. There's a million of them out there.
I got one.
Do you? You did one?
Yeah, I actually tried to download it and get it ready for here, but it messed up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them out there. So look at Adams, and man, they're great.
So let's just talk about real quick how to set it up. Basically, we're just going to stick with 20 by 20. From there, it just expands. But we'll say a 20 by 20, you would take your 4 connector pieces and your 4 20-foot poles. They're actually like 19, what are they, 19.6?
19.6, 19.8.
Yeah, 19.6 because you are counting for the corner pieces. And you just put that together with your R pins or whatever pins you have. Then you throw a tarp down. Well, actually, you build your frame, your square, then you put the cables on, then you put your tarp down, then you put the top on and attach it. And then some people lift, or you have jacks and you put one leg in on the corner, then you put another leg in. You pull the tarp out, take your false center pole, slide it onto the cables, and then your peak is built, and then you go lift the other two sides.
Easy.
Simple.
What's it take? You guys have them, Adam?
Yeah. So
what's it take, about 20 minutes to set one up?
We've done it in 10, and we've taken it down in 5. So I have this one place. It's a Harley Davidson dealership. Every Thursday night they do a thing. So every Thursday night they have a band, and so we go Thursday morning and set it up. And I don't normally book things like a normal 20 by 20. I would just book that one thing for the Saturday. We might set it up Thursday or Friday. But with these 20 by 20 frame tents, I know that every Friday morning I can go there and take it down within 5 to 10 minutes, have it on the truck, and get it rented back out for Saturday. They're super fast.
What do you get? 250, 275? Yeah,
I'm getting 250, and I use 2 water barrels because it's kind of in this position where I can stake off to most, except for on one leg.
Yep. Beautiful. I mean, they're a great way to start. And anyone that's new that's watching this video, if you're going to start in a tent, that's where you start. Buy 1 or 2 of those 20 by 20 high peaks. I would say the manufacturers for those, there's Carnegie Tent, CHARNECKE.
My favorite is Tent Renters Supply.
Tent Renter Supply out of Tampa. Yeah. They make them. I don't know if they make them or if they may buy them and bring them in. I'm not sure if they make it. Do they make them?
I know I had 2 of that. Well, I had 4 of theirs for 8 years. The top 2, I took care of the tops, but and then I switched the tops to a different company, but I still have the frames. They're still great. They were one of the lowest priced ones. I was a poor young, just starting out, but I still stand by them. Tent Renter Supply for high peak frame tents.
There's nothing wrong with Tent Renter. I mean, I never bought tents from them, but I've never heard anything bad about them either. So there's another place called All State Tents. They're out of Ohio, I believe, and they're a good manufacturer. I wouldn't buy pole tents from them, but they're a good manufacturer for frame tents, and they make a good high peak tent at a good price. So there's a few different ones for you. You can email Adam or email me, and I'm glad to give you some more information.
Just remember, you want the 19.6 legs, or not 19.6, so you can make a 20 by 20 with 4 pieces. Or if you're making a 20 by 30, they're actually 14.6. There's 4 14.6 pieces and 3.
Plan on bolting them together. Go ahead and have wherever you buy it from. Go ahead and buy their gutter. They should be able to sell you a gutter. So if you're going to buy 2 of them, and with the thought maybe one day I'll make a 20 by 40 out of them, then tell them you want to buy a gutter so that you can gutter them together in case water won't run between them.
This is an interesting question. No, not that one.
I agree with that, Justin.
What is the widest tent you can buy in cross cable style? Now they do make, I have seen 30 wides, but generally it's your normal perimeter. And then
they make a hexagon tent. We bought one. We had one. We did when we first got the Dallas Cowboys contract, we made a what they called we made these tent pods, and we made about 60 of these high peak tents, and they were before the games, and the people would buy them, and they would at the Cowboy Stadium, and then they would have the Cowboys would cater the food into them, and they kind of like a little tailgating event. In the center, we had a hexagon tent, and it's a funky size, but I want to think it's like a 32 by 32. I don't know exactly. So if someone has one that knows exactly, it's been so long since I've had one. But I want to think it's somewhere in the 30s, and it's a hexagon. So maybe an octagon tent that I think it's octagon. So it kind of goes around, and then it still has kind of that high peak look to it. It's a nice tent, but it's a lot heavier and a lot more pieces to it. Once again, if I was going to do tents, then like this, I would buy the 20 by 20s and bolt them together. So it doesn't matter how wide it is. You can make, if you want to do a 40 by 40, you're going to take 4 of these 20 by 20s. You're going to butt them up next to each other, and they're made to do that. You butt them up next to each other. You're going to gutter all the interior use gutters for all the interior in case it rains. And then now you've got a 40 by 40. You've used 4 of these 20 by 20s. Adam just told you his guys put them up in about 10 minutes. So you should be able to do this whole thing with gutters and everything in less than an hour. You set up a 40 by 40 that you should be getting, what is that, 1,600? You should be getting somewhere around $1,200 for. Right. Just an hour to an hour and a half.
I got one suggestion. I want to ask you though, one suggestion. So if you bought 4 of them up together, and you know how the between the legs there's the arch, so you have a bow tie gutter in the center, like all the water is going to be going down into there. There is an option you can get where you have what's called a second valance or double valance, where on the outside of the tent is a little flap with a rope. So then you can butt as many up as you want, and you're not being limited by the vinyl of the tent coming down in the center. You can get all the gutters to go outwards. That doesn't really make sense if you don't get it. Just
what you're going to do is, look, these tent manufacturers know what, reputable tent manufacturer knows what you need. So if you're going to tell them that, if you're going to buy 2 20 by 20s with the hope of one day buying 4, tell them that, hey, I want these set up to where I can bolt these together and make a 20 by 40, or one day buy 2 more of them and make a 40 by 40 of it. Design it, sell me what I need to be able to do that. And they'll do that.
Yeah, definitely 100% tell them, because like he just said, only problem is draining in the middle. So you gotta have it. You gotta already have it in your mind that you might make a 40 by 40. You don't want all the water draining in the middle. You want to have the option to make the water go all the way out instead of into the middle.
I'll plead a little bit of ignorance on it, because we had 20 by 20s that we used just for as 20 by 20s. We had 100 wide structure tents. We had 40 wide pole frame. 40 wide frame tents. We had 100 wide pole tents. So we never needed to bolt tents together. There, like I said, there was a guy that started the same time as us that his whole life was bolting these things together. He did. So I can guarantee you that there is a solution, and I don't know. I personally don't know what that solution is, but I know the manufacturers make a solution to where it's not guttered, because they're designed to do that. If you're just starting out, especially our friends in Canada that may be watching this, Technology, as you all know up there, they're up in Canada. They're a very good manufacturer.
They invented the high peak.
Yep, they did, and they're really they got a superior product. It's very good.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're starting out, sometimes it may be better to start with a company like that rather than say a tent renter supply or a Carnegie or an Allstate. It may be better to start with a place like Technology. It may be a better, because you're going to gain their expertise and they're going to be able to teach you so much about these tents. And then once you've bought 4 or 5 or 6 of them from them, and you really learned everything you can about them, now you know what quality is. And now maybe you can go to find yourself, a manufacturer that can make them for you cheaper, and be able to buy them from them. That's actually what this guy did. He used to buy from Technology pretty well all the time, and I think he's buying from Tent and Table now, if I'm not mistaken. But he bought a ton of them from Technology, and I would say he's probably one of the experts in these high peak tents because he's put so many of them up. And so, Justin, I would tell you that there is I can guarantee you that the flowing in the middle is not a problem. There's a solution to that. I personally don't know what that solution is, but
actually, at one of the ARA shows, there was a guy selling high peak frame tents, and he also has a rental company, and he designed them entirely to make 60 wides out of a bunch of 20 by 40s, and they could all be guttered without anything draining into the center. I don't remember the name of him, but any manufacturer can get you what you need. There's this one guy, I'm just going to mention, a Metroplex Event Rental, or a girl, I actually think she is. This is a question I want you to go to his page for, because we're just trying to stick to frame tents. But talk to Brian.
Call me up. Text Metroplex Event. Just shoot me. I'm on Facebook, Rental Innovations, or my name, Brian Jenkins. And I'm Brian at Rental Innovations, just like there it is down there.com. So you can shoot me a text or an email, and I'll be glad to give you some thoughts on the Metroplex.
I also want to mention everyone should subscribe to his. It's on your Rental Innovations page, I believe, where you do like 5 to 10 minute videos.
Yeah.
So everyone go subscribe to his Facebook page, Rental Innovations. And I don't know how often you do it, but I see him all the time.
Yeah, try to about once a week.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is going to lead us into the next. We're not going to answer it immediately, but we'll talk about it. He uses Olympic Keder tents at his job. How different are the different manufacturer Keder systems? Any preference? So let's just get kind of straight into Keder tents. This is a Keder tent right here, and a lot of people do not know what Keder is. So let's start with what Keder is, or what is Keder?
Okay, I thought you were going to show that picture. There we go.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. So Keder is this is a cross section of the pipe. Remember, we've been talking about 2-inch pipe is what you're setting up your tent with. If you notice the circle part, that is the pipe itself. That's exact same 2 inches Schedule 40 aluminum pipe that you would see on any West Coast frame tent. The difference is you see those 2 slots on the top. That's where what that is that's called that's part of the Keder system. And what happens is on a Keder tent, you have panels instead of. Remember on the West Coast we laced it together, and Adam talked about how sometimes this one company they laced it up there, but we said usually my guys always laced it on the ground and we threw it up over top. A Keder tent system, it's panels. So what you do is you build your frame, and then you set your frame up. Now you've got your legs and everything else, and then what you do is you feed these flat panels through those Keder through the top, and they're usually it kind of
looks like this. Like the Keder will just go
slide right through. Yep. And so you have usually 1 or 2 guys, depending on how big it is. You got 1 or 2 guys feeding it on one side, and 1 or 2 guys pulling it on the other. So usually it takes me a few more guys. It takes about probably 3 or 4 guys to do it. I mean, you can do it with less, but easily it takes to make it easier. It takes probably 4 guys to do it. It's the advantage is it's all integrated. That it just looks. I'll show that picture again of the Keder top. It just looks nice. It's nice and tight. It gives a nice clean look. It's the tent top is actually part of the frame, so it's actually since it slides in. It actually becomes part of the frame. If you use Kedered legs. So the legs also, if they're Kedered, then you don't get the bellowing and blowing of the sidewalls like you do in a regular, frame tent or even a pole tent. It's just a very, very clean, nice look. The guy that bought Olympic tents, they're one of the gold standards in this. They kind of out there on Rainier Olympic, they kind of came up with this whole system on Keder tents, and then you have. Companies like Eureka came up with a system called the X2 system. Anchor has some Kedered systems. You can buy structured tents that are just a small profile. So instead of like that, it's just a square. It's more of a rectangle profile instead of round. It's
This one I'm showing is the only one I could find on quick.
That's fine.
I just found it quick. This is a smaller one. A lot of times they got 2 barrels, or they're square or rectangular. This is kind of like one of the lower ends. Like Aztec makes Jumbo Track, which is like a big heavy duty thing.
It's a frame. All it is a frame. Jumbo Track, those are just a frame tent with Keder, but it looks nice. It's a nice tent.
Now, a lot of people are confused. Like you said, like Olympic makes one, and they all name it their own thing. Like Aztec names it Jumbo Track. What is it? Anchor calls it Navitrack. They just named it their own thing. It's all Keder. There's no real difference between them.
If you just tell them you want a Keder tent, they're gonna know what you're talking about. They'll get, they'll help you with it. Usually, you have those in a 30 wide or 40 wide tent. If you get into this anything bigger than a 40 wide, you're getting more into structures because you're starting to need that little bit bigger profile. So that little round 2-inch. It is more expensive. 10x events, it is more expensive than say a regular frame tent. Once again, if you're just starting out, High Peak is the way to go, and West Coast frames. That's the way to start. Keder is once you've been doing this for a while, you want to kind of get to that next level. Maybe you want to get a nice wedding tent, where you can start setting up some nice high dollar weddings. We would always do structure or structure tents, which is Keder. We would always do those on a nice wedding, just because it's just a clean look. You don't have the bellowing of the sidewalls.
It's usually engineered.
The doors fit. They make doors specifically for them, but it is a much more expensive system than just say a West Coast frame tent.
And whenever you guys see clear, it's always Keder.
Yep.
The panels are clear, but they got the Keder rope, and you slide them through. You can't do a clear tent with tension. I mean, I've seen some manufacturers, but I don't know how they'll last.
They don't last. I mean, we started out, we bought a couple clear top. They don't last very long at all, but we started out with them, and they didn't have a lot of Keder stuff when we started, so it was kind of what we started. But yeah, it's a great system. Olympic, my friend there that's talked about it earlier, that he had it. Olympic is a great system, a great company to buy from. Like I said, if you're on the East Coast, Eureka, and if you're in the Midwest, Anchor. All of them have basically the same product. Fred's Tents, they kind of make a product that is that's a Keder top. Personally though, my personal opinion is, before I bought a Navitrack or something like that, I would rather buy a smaller profile structure tent. It's just a better tent. It's more engineered, and it is it's going to get you used to doing structure tents for when you get bigger, and you're going to do bigger structure tents. Now your guys know how to work them and how they fit together.
Right. So we're going to get into structures next, but do you think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you so everyone can hear. Do you say a 40 by 100 frame tent for a wedding? Do you think it's faster to do a West Coast frame tent or a Kedered frame tent?
I mean, for us, West Coast was much faster.
It was. Oh, I thought you were going to say Keder.
No, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why, Adam. Because for us, my guys could just throw it up. They've got so good at throwing it up over the top and everything that they could pop one of them a 40 by 100 up frame tent in no time at all. But now let me preface it. If you send out the right amount of guys on a Keder tent, that's fine too. The problem with the Keder tent, especially in the cold, guys, in like a lot of you up north, is a lot of time that Keder just doesn't slide. If it gets cockeyed just a little bit, it becomes a friggin' nightmare, and it takes forever. We did a fire out in California last summer. I do fires also, and we set up a Keder tent, 40 by 100 and 40 by 140, I think it was, for dining. And we could not get one of the Keder kept tearing. The little plastic Keder that slides up through that little groove that Adam showed you. It kept binding and everything. We screwed around with that thing for probably 3 hours trying to get that Keder to get. We were cutting. We finally got it through, but it just took forever.
Right.
You seem to have more issues with Keder than you do with a West Coast frame because like I said, it just gets the least bit cocky or cockeyed, or sometimes if the guys aren't taking real good care, that aluminum will get crimped in that little gap, in that little groove thing. And if that happens, then when you're sliding it through, it'll get caught up, and then it cockeyes everything and tears. And so, especially in the up north part of the country where it gets very cold, Keder is a little bit harder to deal with.
Well, you ruined my thing. I was going to say, I think Keder is way faster. Now, it's different because when the Keder tent would go up for my company, I would be on it. And all my guys, they know that this is my life and whatever, and they take care of everything. So we never had actually anything crimp. But I thought a Keder, like a 30 by 60 Keder frame tent, was way faster than a 30 by 60 West Coast frame.
I mean, I'm not, it's how what you guys are used to. Some guys are, I mean, we went to, at when I owned my company at Peerless, we went strictly about the last 5 years that I owned it. We went 100% Keder. We got rid of all of our West Coast, and we bought Eureka's, hell, what they call it?
Eastman?
Huh?
Was it the Eastman? No, Eastman is their structure.
Oh, they call it I think it's a Keder system, like Olympics and everything else. But we bought it for all 20 wides, 10 wides, and now the guys get it up really fast.
Right. That was mean. Like Aztec makes a jumbo track, and then they have jumbo track light, which is what my 30 by 60 was. It's just a regular 2-inch pole with the Keder on it. Their jumbo track is a larger pole, doesn't bend as easy, and is made for like heavier duty installs or longer installs. But so that leads us into structure, which scares a lot of people. But a structure is still a Keder system. There's just a lot of times better engineering or different ways you set it up. Like sometimes you have to actually like bolt it in the ground and tilt it up and whatever. So I actually don't know that much about structures. I set up structures for my friend. We did jobs in DC, but I didn't have too much hands-on. We were building 60,000 square foot stage for the structures to go on. So I didn't actually like touch the structures. But why don't you get into structures a little bit?
So structure tent is probably the best of the tents we're going to talk about. I mean, first of all, they're engineered. Usually they're engineered around 90 miles per hour of wind rated. So the wind rating is going to be more and more important in municipalities. These cities are going to start want to see wind certificates and stuff like that, wind engineering certificates. But Keder tents, if you buy them from a reputable source, are going to be wind rated. And it's kind of why I say I like the jumbo track. I like the Eureka system that we used at Peerless and all that. But the nice thing about buying a smaller profile structure tent is it gets your guys used to starting to deal with structure tents. And the way a structure tent does is you build it on the ground. So you have your base plates. And the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna lay your base plates out along the ground, and you knock them in with you anchor them with stakes. You can anchor them with concrete anchors, or you can anchor them with cement blocks. Certainly, always the best is stakes. But the first thing you do is you put in your base plates all the way around, and then you build your framing, if you will, and it lays down. So you're building it on the ground. So the first thing you do is you put your legs on, and they attach to the foot plates, and then you build the top. So what you have is, I wish I had a picture of it, but you have it kind of like this, kind of like a picture of a house. So it goes, I'm going backwards on my thing, so it's confusing. So it goes up and then over and then, hell, I can't do it. But it's like an A, so it's like this. That's
right.
Like that.
Leg and two pieces.
And you're building it on the ground like this. So what happens is you're building this, and then you have a little connector up here, and then you have side connectors here. And down here's your legs, and these are connected to your base plates, and the base plates swivel. So once you have all of it built on the ground, the next step is you just tilt these things up, and now and then what you got is you've got what are called purlins that go between let's say 10-foot bays, 15-foot bays. They go between these bays, and what they do is they connect this bay to the one next to it. So they go across, and they kind of connect it all and make it all one piece. And then you just kind of continually, depending on how big it is, you continually just pick these things up along your base plates. So you can have 10 of these or 20 of them, however long you're going. And then once you've got them all up and you've got all your purlins in, Then you take your Keder and you simply slide that Keder up through the top and down through the back. And then once you're done with that, then you put your sidewalls in and they Keder in, and then you have what's called tension bars underneath that tension everything down for the sidewalls, and then you have tension bars up top that tension the top down. So it gets everything really tight, and it's just a really nice look.
And they have much higher profile frame systems. Like
we had profiles for our 100 wides. The beams were. I know this doesn't really show anything, but I would say, this is probably what about maybe it was this wide, maybe 10 inches, 9 inches wide, and that's how wide the aluminum was, and maybe by that. So this by that. So huge, big beams,
which allows you to make really wide.
And you have a lot of you can buy a profile that allows you to make a 50, a 60 wide tent by just putting in splices. So you have a lot of you can build a lot of different size tents for each profile. And a profile means how big the beams are. So you make a real small profile, which I think is like a I forgot I think it's Anchor makes like a P3 profile, which is the little rectangle about like that. Very light, goes up. It's same basic system. It's on foot plates. And what's nice about that versus the jumbo track, anything like that, is once again, it gets your guys used to building structure tents. So now when you go to bigger structure tents, they all build the same. They all have the same base plates. They all use base plates. They all rotate up. They all be connected by purlins. So if they can do the small ones, then, with a little practice, they'll be able to do bigger and bigger and bigger to where, you'll be able to do, huge, 100 wide structure tents.
Right. Now, people are kind of scared of them because you got to get the base plates pretty exact, but the manufacturer is going to tell you where they go. Also,
or you can find guys. There's guys out there that do this for all over the place. One of the things you can do, especially if you're just starting out and you don't have any guys that know how to do them, is there's a couple ways to handle that. One is you find your competitors, guys, and you get one of them. Most of these guys, you can, if you pay them $4 or $5 more an hour, they'll gladly hop ship and come over to you. You don't need to get their best guy. Get one of their medium guys, one of their guys that's maybe just a helper that doesn't have a driver's license, but he knows how to set everything they got up. Well, you can get that guy for probably $18, $20 an hour, and now he can teach everyone else how to do them.
Right. That math that you thought you would never use in high school, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, you're using it now.
Yeah, finally using it. But these guys can lay that. They go out there with a piece of string and a tape measure, and they just pop. They put those base plates in, and they've got base plates laid out in very, very quickly. And we set up structure tents in for a lot of our disaster relief. And we'll get up, a 60 by 120 structure, and I say 60, the metric. So it's a 20 meter by 40 meter structure or something like that. We'll get one of those up in 4 or 5 hours. Once again, the great advantage of them is they hold a bigger load of snow. So if you have snow problems up, they're better for that. They are engineered for wind. That they make door systems specifically for them, so the doors fit in. You're not rigging them and trying to cut vinyl and everything else.
They make walls, clear walls, solid walls.
I sell walls for them very, very inexpensively. So if you're going to buy it, give me a call. I only sell the metric right now, but I got a great price for 20 ounce coated. But yeah, you can really, really do yourself good by getting into Keder. But that's not something until you've mastered your frame tents and your pole tents. That's the next logical step to maybe get yourself a Keder tent. But it's not something you want to buy right off, because it's going to take a little more. When you start buying that, you're starting to get into a little bit more expensive labor, because you got to know how to do that.
Here's a good question. Hip or gable end for Keder. Now, people who don't know, hip means when you look at a normal West Coast frame tent, the ends are kind of going to come up. Gable means that they're flat. This picture right here is gable. It's flat. So it's different.
What's nice about a gable is you can leave that gable out if you want, and it gives you some flexibility. Like we did up in New York this past. You guys had a hurricane up there, and I was up there in setting up throughout New York, and at the end of the hurricane, they wanted to set up some COVID testing tents where they tested all the electric linemen and stuff before they went home. They went to test for COVID, and a lot of them wanted to drive. They wanted them to be able to drive those great big trucks underneath it. And the advantage of a gable tent is you can leave that center bar out there and then not put the gable in, and now you can get a big truck or whatever through that, because you got ton of clear space going
or
on.
bands, like a stage.
Yeah, it's more of a stage. Kind of set up for a stage. So I personally I love gable ends. Mostly though, when you're buying a West Coast frame tent, most of them are a hip.
Yeah, West Coast is definitely a hip. So I had this piece of land where I was going to maybe put up an Aztec jumbo track, and the representative said, I definitely want hip, because it was going to be up all summer, and the wind's the issue. On a gable, it's flat, and if the wind's coming, it's just going to keep hitting that flat side if this is going to be up for 5 months. So for 5 months, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to buy a hip one so that the wind doesn't just slam into it.
Fair enough. Yep. So that makes a lot of sense. So I would say though, if you got one choice, I would go with the hip, and because you probably chances are not going to be doing what Adam did, is setting them up at a farm where you got it like that. You're probably setting up for COVID test sites or weddings. I mean, that's a beautiful tent, that one you showed. I think that looked like a Eureka East span.
That's either Eureka or Aztec. Aztec has a starburst. That's not Aztec.
I don't know if that's Eureka either, but anyway, as you guys can see, that's a nice looking tent that is Kedered and would be a great addition to anyone's.
Yeah, the gable can be solid, but obviously it's cooler the windows, and then each one of those panels, like you could have just one of those panels clear,
right?
Have like one section. That gives you a lot of different options, and obviously like upcharging a lot for clear.
Yeah, you're always going to charge more for clear, because clear doesn't last as long as white. So the kind of the rule of thumb is you want to charge about 50% of what it costs you for the clear panel. So if you spend $3,000 for the clear panel, you want to charge about $1,500 for that clear panel. Right. If they want it, they'll get it. Remember, if you're down south in Texas, we didn't do a lot of clear tops, especially during the summer, because what you're building is a greenhouse.
Exactly.
You're not going to be able to cool that tent if you've got a pure clear top. So in Texas, we do them, but usually for just night weddings. Never during the day would I do one during the summer. But night I would do it. But you just got to be careful.
Did you say you can leave the bottom frame of the gables out? Yes.
You can leave the gable out, yes. And then you got just an A. Now you got just this A. So now you can drive right through it. If like for these COVID tents, you can do that. Now pickup trucks or whatever, you got more clearance.
What I was going to do on my permanent site was I was going to set up a 40 by 100, and then off of that 40 by 100 was going to be one other section that was a clear top, and it was going to be like a patio. And that last section wasn't going to have a center or a leg in the middle. So it was basically a complete 40 by 100 with the leg in the middle, window gable, and then off of that was just continuing on the tent. So it's not a 40 by 100, it's a 40 by 120 with a patio. It's kind of hard to explain, but you know what I'm talking about, right? And then they wouldn't have that center middle leg.
You can actually on these structure, on these kinds of tents we're talking about, these structure tents and these you can put in what they call an interior gable. So you could go. So you got, let's say a 40 by 80. Well, you can build your gable 20 foot in. So now that outside 20 foot is kind of like I think what you call it, a porch. You can build a porch on there, and then you walk in 20 foot, and then that's where your wall starts. So that's what's kind of cool about these gable structure tents and
right. Or say you were trying to build like an office, a temporary office. You could have a gable every 20 feet with sides, and so you would have 40 by 20, 40 by 20, 40 by 20, but it's all in one tent. But it's kind of sectioned off, so you can have your office space or COVID space or whatever.
Yep.
There was a question, I can't find it anymore, but what's the smallest you can get in a structure is basically what the question was.
In a structure, the smallest would be a
6 meter,
probably a 3 meter.
I
think a 3 meter. I got a little 6 meter by 12 meter that I bought when I do hurricanes, I've got this little travel trailer. It's a little 15 footer that I needed to be able to put something in the back of my warehouse, but I wanted to cover it. So I bought a little small structure, little small profile structure kit. I left the gable out, and I just pull it right under there. So it's 3 meter. 6 meters. So that's 20 foot by 40 foot. No, is that right? Hold on, let me think about this. I got a 3 meter by 9 meter. No, I've got 3 meter by 6 meter. So it's 10 foot wide by 20 foot long. And the reason I bought it, let me tell you why I bought it. Because in my municipality, anything 200 square feet or above, you have to have a permit. But meters are just slightly shorter than feet. So when I went 3 meter, that's really 9.8 feet by 6 meter, which is 18 point whatever feet. So I'm about 195 square feet. So I'm under that 200 square feet. So I don't need a permit. So if they ever come back and try to give me trouble, I can tell them it's under 200 square feet, so I don't need a permit. So I think a 3 meter wide would be about as small of a structure tent as you get. So mine is a real small profile. I bought it from Leary Tent. It's probably, 2 inches across this way by maybe 4 inches the long way. So that'd be that. If you looked at it from the end, it'd be like that. And the legs go up. I think they go up about 8 feet. The legs are 10 feet, and then it peaks up from there. And remember, I had this. It's a little 15-foot trailer, but it's got an air conditioner on top. So I needed that structure tent. So I had that. I left the gate off, so now I've got all that room under there. And it just barely fits under there. I got to put it right. When I back it in, I got to get it just exactly right, and I got a little bit of clearance on both sides, so it works out perfect.
Right.
So,
now, a good thing to point out is a lot of times structures are sold in meters. I don't know why. Maybe because Lowe'sburger is the biggest.
They were over in Europe. The big manufacturers were over in Europe. There's not a lot of manufacturers over here there are, but for instance, Eastband, which is Eureka's structure that they have, that's in feet.
Right.
But most of your big structure makers, your Anchor, your Leary, your Rotor, all those are all made in Europe. Leary's made in China. All good products, and it's all metered over there. It really doesn't matter. It's tit for tat. I mean, when we would sell them, we sold them in feet. So we never sold them in meters. We don't do meters over here in America. So instead of saying it was if someone wanted a 60 wide, a 60 wide by a 60 by 120, we would never sell them a 20 meter by 40 meter. We sold them a 60 by 120. They don't know.
They don't know.
And
they're not going out there with a tape measure, making sure it's exact.
It's just different, even if they did. So,
right.
Yeah.
We got a personal question. I think we'll wrap it up because we did cover every frame tent possible. What's the biggest structure you've ever had collapse and why?
Never had a structure collapse.
That's what I was going to guess.
Thank God. Had a big pole tent, had a 100 wide pole tent collapse, got hit by a microburst. It's on YouTube if you want to see it. It's a very interesting thing to see. Go to YouTube and go to Oklahoma Peter Frampton Casino tent collapse. Oklahoma Peter Frampton concert, Oklahoma casino tent collapse. And you'll see we had a 100 by 300 tent that we had set up, got hit by a microburst. Thank God it was about 2 hours before the concert. And it got hit by this microburst and literally blows up, and all the chairs are still sitting in a row, not moved. Really something. And the reason it's all on film is because, yes, that's right. The reason it is on film is because it was at a casino, and they have cameras everywhere, and they caught it. So it was really interesting. And it was one of those deals where, though, we got sued, and they go through and they went through everything that we did. And they, I don't care who you are or what you do, how well you do it, you're not going to do everything absolutely right per engineering specs every time. And they're going to find those one or two bad things that you did, and they're going to hop on them, and that's where they're going to get you. And that's why if people always ask me, what kind of insurance should I get? Who should, if you always notice on Facebook, my response is very canned. It's ARA Insurance, and the reason I recommend ARA Insurance is because they insure our industry. They know what we have. So they've never given me a problem on anything, and they've always covered it. And that's what you want. You don't want to be fighting insurance guys if that happens. So anyway, that's structure tent. Thank God, never had one. Had a couple frame tents. Poles break and collapse. Had one at a car lot where we had a frame tent collapse. It was because the guys early on in our when we started, they didn't put the pins in the side poles, and we were using water barrels, and the wind came and kind of shook them, and then the poles started falling. And once the poles started falling, then the whole thing collapsed on top of some cars. So our insurance got to pay a nice little hefty chunk of change for that too.
I've never had a frame tent or Keder tent collapse. I had a 4x100 collapse during Hurricane Katrina, but it was the next day while I was there trying to get everything out from under it, and that's the only collapse. And that's because I was young and I didn't buy stake bars yet. Once I had stake bars, I've never had an issue.
Sometimes things happen though. Sometimes sometimes you get hit by a microburst, and sometimes bad things happen to good people, and you try to learn from it. And thank God that as many people didn't get hurt. We had one guy who's pretty seriously injured, but if you look at the video of the guy that you got this huge storm and people are running under this damn tent instead of away from it. They're leaving them.
They're supposed to go away.
Yeah. So it's another reason why you always want a good evacuation policy. You want your customers to sign for that evacuation policy and put that damn thing on them. So make sure that they understand it. It's their responsibility to evacuate that tent in adverse weather.
Right. Now, this question was in the very beginning, and I think we'll end with this one. New to business, what's better, frame or pole tents?
20 by 20 high peak. You must be getting in late. If you're new to business, I always say recommend starting with 20 by 20 high peak tents. Easy to set up, fast to set up. You and a kid can set them up, or when you get to a point where you hire a couple kids to do it, summer help type stuff, they're very easy to train someone on. That's what I would start out. If you want to get into West Coast frame tents, I would do frame tents. Pole tents take a little bit more expertise in that you have to square them, and if they're not squared correctly and everything, they're a little bit funkier to get up. a frame tents, I think, is a lot more forgiving. I don't know about you, Adam. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but in my mind, a pole tent is, of the three, is the hardest to set up.
I think frame tents are really easy to set up. The squaring issue, I come up with this a lot. People say you got to square, you got to square. Well, what we do is we lay the tent on the ground and then kind of pull the middles so that the middle is where it's supposed to kind of be pulled, and then pull the ends. And then my tent is just as square as someone trying to actually do the math with the.
We go out 8 feet, I think it is, from each side. We did the same thing, but I don't know. I just think that it takes a little more expertise. It's a little bit harder for a pole tent than it is a frame tent. Certainly the guy said he was new to the industry.
Yeah.
I would say 20 by 20 high peak tent. Start out with that, buy a couple of them, and I think you'll be real happy. Be a good start. Yeah,
it's always going to look good and whatever. And Brian is right. The pole tents, your first time going to be putting up, it's going to look like crap. It's going to look like crap for a while. You're going to have to figure out how to tighten it and do everything in the correct order. The frame tent, you just do it, and there you go. You got a tent up.
Make sure you buy from look, when we're talking about frame tents and stuff, make sure you buy from commercial places. I've been seeing on Facebook some people that are buying these tents from the Costco in China. These ones that have that like little, real small little steel tubes, and they got the little round connectors and a real light tarpaulin type 4-ounce tarpaulin plastic top, and those things are pieces of crap. They're going to get someone hurt. They look like crap. It's nothing. If you're charging people for tents, you don't need to be using those. Get a commercial tent.
Also, the commercial tent, it costs more, but those things that Brian's talking about, they got tons of plastic connectors. Everything is almost different than the next piece. It takes forever to put up. It's actually a lot faster to put up a 20 by 20 high peak. And I've actually done it. I've showed up at a job site where people were putting together a carport white garage tent or whatever, and we got our 20 by 20 pole tent up faster than they're not even 10% done with their frame tent.
Yep.
All right. So everyone, thank you. And again, go check out Brian's Facebook page, Rental Innovations, and he does videos once a week, usually 5 or 10 minutes long, covering one topic, and gives a lot of information. Also, Brian has said in the past that you can call him up and ask him questions.
Anytime. I love talk. I sold my company 2 years ago. I started out for like many of you guys. I started out literally with 3 margarita machines. Wound up buying a couple tables from Costco. Then wound up getting some steel chairs from some other place, and that's how I started. And then one time someone said, "Do you have tents?" And so I bought a tent off eBay, and it was a piece of shit that I paid a lot of money for, and it ripped. It was a pole tent. It took me forever to get it up, then it ripped, and then I wound up getting with Eureka. Wound up buying my tents, my pole tents and stuff from Eureka. All my tents from Eureka first, and anyway, started out just like all you guys. I sold it, had owned it for 12 years. And when I sold it in 2019, we had annual revenues of $15 million. So we grew very, very quickly and did a ton of tents. You can make a ton of money in tents and tables and chairs. You just got to work hard, and you got to do the right thing. And watching Adam, I know Adam puts out a lot of good stuff that I wish I would have had. I wish I would have had that resource when I started. I was nothing like that. And I know Justin, he puts out a lot of stuff. This is a lot more bounce house oriented, but he does put out some other stuff. There's a lot of guys out there now, that are. I put out, like I said, my YouTube videos. I try to keep mine to 5 to 10 minutes each. But there's a lot of guys putting YouTube stuff out there now that you can learn from and not make the same mistakes that I made.
Yeah, it's a little renaissance right now. Everyone who's starting right now has all these resources, like your thing, my thing, Justin, the 2 guys up in Canada. And all the Facebook groups too. Like if you're not, obviously most of you guys, there's been some Facebook users on here, but there's a lot of Facebook groups where you can just go ask a question in 20 people answer it.
Great Facebook groups, man. There's great ones on. There's I'm a member. If you're new, look, one of the biggest piece of advice I'm going to give you is in October is the rental show. Get your ass to the rental show. I don't want to hear how busy you are. I know it's a bad time for the rental show for a lot of us, especially down south. October's a busy month for us. Get your butt to the rental show. Go to all the classes. Find the classes that work best for you. I'm telling you, you will learn more in the 1.5 days of classes that they offer. They offer a 1 day specializes only in tents, and that's the first day of it. It costs like $500 to go to it, and you will learn a ton of things about tents in that 1 day. And then the next day, you go to the regular classes, and they have classes on tents, they have classes on all kinds of stuff. And then you go to the show, and the show is 2.5 days. I have a booth there, but there's all the tent vendors. They're all there. They can talk to you about what they do and how they sell them and what their advantages are. So you can just learn so much in 5 days that you're not going to get in years of experience. So I would highly recommend that you go to the ARA, the rental show. ARA, the rental show. It's going to be in October. MATRA, Mid-Atlantic Tent Renters Association, also is a very good organization, and they do a lot of tenting stuff, and they do an annual show that's also very, very good. Once you get a little bit bigger, there's the International Fabric Association International. They have a tent division. I would say stay away from that until you get more into the bigger tents, the structures and stuff like that. Then you may want to wander over into that. That's a lot of bigger guys. Dan Crowley, he's got a Facebook page. He does he does all of the groups, what do they call those, peer groups, and you can get in one of those and learn. They're usually groups of 10 to 12, all from all over the nation, and you guys meet once a month somewhere. It's another great resource to learn from your fellow guys. But all that kind of thing, it costs money to do it, but man, put it in your budget. It's worth it. It's not all about just buying tents. You got to learn how to do it and the right ways to do it.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to go to the ARA show this year, and
I'll have a booth. Say hi, Alan.
I will. I'll stop by. Hopefully, this is the only place in the world where I will be semi-famous. So you see me out after the ARA show.
That big old ball head. There comes Adam.
Yeah, and I'm a cartoon character.
Money coming out of your pockets because it's going to be in Las Vegas.
What's that?
Money will be flowing out of your pockets because it's going to be in Las Vegas.
Yeah, probably. But I'm going to be semi-famous because of this tiny little YouTube channel. Hopefully you buy me a drink. Not you, but anyone watching, buy me a drink when you see me out. Yeah. I'll feel special. Yeah,
you also get, a lot of vendors have offer discounts. I always run a 10% off of everything I got for show special. So you'll save, if you're going to go there and buy, then that's the time to do it. You'll save some money at the show, and man, you'll get to see everything.
That's a good time. And you'll come up with so many ideas too.
Oh man, ton. But be sure to go to the first day. Same to you, Adam. The first day is the they call it the tent showcase or something like that. It's a very fun. Costs like $500. You got to register early because it sells out quick. But it's the first day, and it's a special session all day of tents. And then you can sign your chest.
Yeah, I'm going to sign his chest when I see him at the show. But all right, guys, everyone, thank you for coming on. When people ask me about these differences between frame tents, I'm just going to send them straight to this video.
Hey, that'd be easier, wouldn't it?
And for a lot of people, a Keder is confusing. It's going to be a lot easier if you call manufacturers. They can actually send you tiny little samples of each frame.
Or go to the rental show in October, and you'll see a ton of them there, and they'll show you how they work.
They actually have them set up in the expo. They have like a mini.
It's very cool. It is so fun, and at night everyone gets together, and the good thing is if you're buying from somebody, then a lot of times they'll take you out for drinks or dinner or something. And if not, you can always find someone's party that crashes. Right. Always someone you can mooch off of.
So my first ARA show, I wasn't that big or known. I went with Sean from McCarthy Tents and Events. I don't know if you know him.
I do.
Everyone wants his money. So I went out to fancy dinners every night because I was with him.
That's right. That's I don't think when we, especially at the last 10 years I was in business, I don't think I ever spent a penny at any of the shows. I mean, and I took full advantage of it. I'd bring my wife and everyone else, and we would all go out and on the manufacturers. So yeah, it was fun.
Aztec paid for a steak and lobster dinner for me because I was hanging out with Sean.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. If you're small, find a big guy that you can kind of hook onto. Yeah, you have a blast.
Right. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
All right, Adam. Thanks.